I was also in Afghanistan shortly after the invasion, and Monrovia reminded me, as weird as it sounds, so much of Kabul, and just that same kind of bombed out landscape, people trying to, diverse ethnic groups trying to centralize and unite around a common cause, corruption, and women, and the whole kind of issue of women trying to empower themselves after being oppressed. Their statistics vary, but it's been said that anywhere from 60 to 90% of the women were raped during the war. Men were raped as well. And when I say women, I should actually say 60 to 90% of the female population. So rape became very much a part of the psyche. And at the same time, as the others have noted, there's this prevailing sense of hope, and particularly among women, middle-aged, older women, less so than younger women, interestingly enough, who were the peace warriors during and forced peace talks between the different warring factions. And so the women that we encountered who were featured in the documentary Pray the Devil Back to Hell, they were from the Women in Peace Building Network of West Africa, and they feel very empowered. I mean, they are feeling, you know, that very 1970s Helen Reddy, I am woman kind of thing. You see it less so in the younger women. But I just found this dichotomy there that was very hard to reconcile, and I'm still trying to figure this out. There's this burgeoning sense of feminism, like I asked Edwida Sugars if she considered herself a feminist, and she did something that you don't see very many women these days in America, particularly black women, doing. And she said yes, and she just kind of straightened up and she smiled. It was like, yeah, I'm a feminist. So how do you, and everywhere we went, you know, we encountered a lot of activists, male and female, and everyone is like, yay, women, rape is bad. And there's this kind of, because of radio campaigns and billboards and NGOs and, you know, Mama Ellen, the president, you know, really cracking down on the issue of rape. So everyone seems very sensitized to the issue, and yet it's a huge problem. So I couldn't figure out if, you know, it was yay women, we respect women if they're older, and the younger women are left to fend for themselves. That's, you know, I wasn't, you know, 10, 12 days felt like a long time, it felt like forever, but it's not enough time to like really be able to answer that question. My good friend Lori Cooper, who's been living in Liberia for 4 years, knows things a lot more. So for the women there, the biggest issue is that of economic empowerment. So, you know, they feel like a lot of lip service is being paid. They're feeling empowered, but they're broke. There's the unemployment rate in Liberia is estimated to be about 85%. Now that's a slightly misleading number because it really means 85% don't have work in the formal sense of the word, but everybody works there. Everyone. If you're a little kid, I mean, little old lady, there's just this very robust sense of work, and you rarely see beggars. I mean, literally, I saw 2, and the entire time we were there, and they were not Liberian. So the culture is of work. There's this kind of vibe of we're in this together, but underneath the surface is like all this pain and, you know, this legacy of extreme cruelty to each other. So they seem very much to want to overcome it, but how much of that is lip service? For me, it was hard to say. One thing that I thought was very interesting, that even though there was all this lip service paid to women, is if you get into a meeting and there were men and women, the men would just bloviate on and on and on and on. They would completely dominate the conversation. And then another one would get up and say, thank you very much, and then he would, you know, basically say the same exact thing that the guy before said. And so they would totally dominate the conversation. And then one lone woman would be able to kind of slip in and say something, and it would be so potent, and like the legislators that we met with. So I just felt like they were still kind of getting squashed in the process. And the women to me, were much more interesting in what they had to say. Maybe it's because they had to learn how to be concise, because otherwise they weren't going to get a word in edgewise. You know, you're in a country where families were destroyed by war, and you know, fathers were forced to rape their daughters in front of the rest of the family. Mothers were forced to have sex with their sons in front of the rest of the family. We met a former warlord who watched his mother be raped in front of him, and his sister was carried away by soldiers. And so he says that forced him to take up arms. And he says, I never killed anybody, I killed my enemies. So you're just seeing families that have been just wiped away. So as a result, I noticed there were a lot of young women who were single mothers, which kind of runs counter to what my limited experience. This is only my third time on the continent, where it was really interesting to me to see so many women were by themselves, university students working and raising children, some of whom were the legacy of rape. So they're raising children that they probably would not have chosen to have.